The sky turned purple and angry. Hyun watched through the reinforced window of his shelter as lightning tore across the clouds in jagged patterns. This was the third major storm this month on Threshold 7, and each one seemed worse than the last. The wind howled like a living thing, throwing debris against the metal walls of his home. He moved away from the window and checked his equipment. The emergency radio crackled with static. The main colony had sent out warnings hours ago. Everyone needed to stay inside. These electromagnetic storms could fry electronics and collapse buildings if you weren't careful. Hyun had built his shelter strong. He lived alone in the mountains, far from the colony hub, and he liked it that way. The shelter shook as another gust of wind hammered against it. Hyun secured the loose containers on his workbench and made sure his water filtration system was locked down. He had been through storms before. This was just another day on a Death World colony. Most people thought he was crazy for living out here alone, but Hyun preferred the solitude. The mountains were harsh but honest. They didn't pretend to be anything other than dangerous. A massive crack of thunder made the walls vibrate. Hyun grabbed his thermal blanket and settled into his chair, preparing to wait out the worst of it. He had food, water, and power from his backup generator. He would be fine. Then the door exploded inward. Metal shrieked as something hit the entrance with tremendous force. The reinforced door, designed to withstand the storms, flew off its hinges and crashed against the opposite wall. Wind and rain blasted into the shelter, bringing the smell of ozone and burned metal. A figure stumbled through the opening. It was tall, taller than any human, and moved with an awkward, lurching motion. Hyun jumped to his feet, grabbing the closest thing he could use as a weapon, a heavy wrench from his toolbox. The figure collapsed onto the floor with a metallic thud. Hyun could see now that it was wearing some kind of suit, sleek and silver, but damaged. Sparks flew from several points along the torso and limbs. The helmet was cracked, showing glimpses of something underneath that was definitely not human. The creature rose to its knees, moving with clear effort. It turned toward Hyun, and for the first time he got a good look at what had just broken into his home. It was an alien. That much was obvious. The face was humanoid in basic structure, but wrong in all the details. The eyes were too large, taking up nearly a third of the face, and they were a deep amber color that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the shelter. The skin visible through the cracked helmet was pale blue, with faint silver patterns running along the cheekbones. No hair that he could see. The overall impression was of something fragile and refined, completely out of place in the brutal storm outside. The alien stared at him. And then it froze. Not just stopped moving. Froze completely. The large amber eyes went wide, and the creature's mouth opened slightly. Its breathing, which had been labored and quick, seemed to catch in its throat. Hyun kept the wrench ready but didn't advance. He had encountered aliens before. The galaxy was full of different species, and Threshold 7 had its share of visitors, though most stayed at the main colony. He had met traders, scientists, and even a few diplomats. They all treated humans the same way. As newcomers to the galactic stage, primitive colonists trying to survive on worlds they had no business settling. But this alien wasn't looking at him with contempt, or pity, or even curiosity. This alien was looking at him with something that seemed like shock, or fear, or recognition. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the howling wind and the occasional crack of lightning outside. The alien's damaged suit sparked again, and it flinched but didn't take its eyes off Hyun. Then it spoke. The words were completely incomprehensible, a melodic sound that rose and fell in patterns that hurt to listen to. A small device on the alien's collar flickered, and a mechanical voice tried to translate, but it came out garbled and broken. Impossible. Species marked. How? The translator gave up with a squeal of feedback. The alien winced and touched the device, trying to adjust it. Its hands were shaking. Hyun lowered the wrench slightly. Whatever this creature was, it was clearly in trouble. The storm was still raging outside and the shelter door was gone. If he didn't do something, they would both be in danger. He made a decision. He set the wrench down on the workbench keeping it within reach but showing he wasn't immediately threatening. Then he grabbed his thermal blanket and held it out toward the alien. The creature looked at the blanket, then at Hyun, then back at the blanket. It seemed to be struggling with some kind of internal conflict. Finally, with movements that suggested it was acting against its better judgment, it reached out and took the blanket. Hyun gestured toward the corner of the shelter that was furthest from the destroyed door. "You can sit there," he said, speaking slowly and clearly even though he knew the broken translator probably couldn't handle it. He pointed to emphasize his meaning. The alien hesitated, then moved to the corner. It wrapped the blanket around itself, though the material seemed almost comically small against its tall frame. The whole time, those amber eyes never left Hyun's face. He turned his attention to the door. The storm would blow itself out eventually, but until then, he needed to seal the entrance or the shelter would be compromised. He grabbed a sheet of reinforced plastic from his supply closet and began securing it over the opening with magnetic clamps. It wasn't perfect, but it would keep the worst of the weather out. As he worked, he could feel the alien watching him. It was unnerving, that constant stare. When he finished and turned back around, the creature was still looking at him with that same expression of disbelief. The translator crackled again. This time, a few more words came through clearly. "Your species? The reports? Said you were extinct? How are you alive?" He unfrowned. He walked closer, slowly, and knelt down so he was at eye level with the seated alien. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "Humans aren't extinct. There are billions of us." The alien's eyes somehow grew even wider. It touched its translator again, fingers moving frantically over the controls. When it spoke again, the mechanical voice was clearer, though still struggling. "That is not possible. The archive. The inheritors. Extinct for 10,000 cycles. How are you here?" Hyun sat back on his heels. The storm raged outside, and inside his shelter, an alien was telling him that his species should be dead and gone. It was going to be a long night. The storm continued through the night. Hyun managed to reinforce the makeshift door covering, and the shelter settled into an uneasy stability. The alien sat in the corner, working on her translator. Hyun had started thinking of the creature as female based on the voice that came through the device, though he had no idea if that was accurate. Her suit had stopped sparking, but it was clearly damaged beyond quick repair. She had removed the cracked helmet, revealing her full face. The pale blue skin had those silver patterns running not just along her cheekbones, but down her neck and presumably across her entire body. Her eyes were striking, those large amber orbs that caught and reflected light in unusual ways. "My name is Nira," the translator finally managed to convey clearly. "I am a scout for the Velnar Collective." Hyun was heating water for tea on his small portable stove. He looked up. "Hyun," he said, pointing to himself. "Human, from Earth Colony." Nira's expression shifted into something that might have been pain. "Earth," she repeated. "That is the name of your homeworld?" "Yeah?" Hyun poured the hot water into 2 cups. He had no idea if Nira could drink tea, but offering seemed polite. He brought 1 cup over to her and set it down within reach. She looked at the cup like it might explode. "You offer me sustenance?" "It's just tea. Hot water with leaves. It won't hurt you." He took a sip from his own cup to demonstrate. Nira carefully picked up the cup with both hands. Her fingers were longer than human fingers, with an extra joint. She brought the cup to her face and inhaled carefully, then took a tiny sip. Her eyes closed for a moment. "It is pleasant, warm." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind outside. Finally, Hyun spoke. "You said something about my species being extinct. What did you mean?" Nira set down her cup carefully. She reached for a device on her belt, a flat rectangular object that glowed when she touched it. "The Velnar Collective maintains the Galactic Archive," she began. "We are record keepers. We document every known species, their histories, their cultures, living and dead. The archive goes back millions of cycles." "Cycles? Years, in your measurement? The archive contains records of species that existed long before my own people reached the stars. She manipulated the device, and a holographic image appeared above it. The image showed a star map, vast and complex. 10,000 of your years ago, there was a species in the archive. They were called the Inheritors by the other ancient races. Hyun leaned forward, interested despite his confusion. What happened to them? They vanished. Suddenly. The records say they were involved in a great war with an unknown enemy. The war was devastating. Entire star systems went silent. The Inheritors fought across half the galaxy and then… nothing. They disappeared. The archive marked them extinct. Okay, Hyun said slowly. But what does that have to do with humans? Nira looked at him directly. The Inheritors looked exactly like you. The shelter seemed very quiet suddenly, despite the storm. That's… Hyun searched for words. That's impossible. Human history only goes back a few thousand years. We didn't have space travel until 300 years ago. We're new to all this. Nira shook her head. I thought so too. When I first saw records of humans, I assumed it was convergent evolution. Similar species developing independently. It happens sometimes in the galaxy. She manipulated her device again. New images appeared, skeletal structures, DNA helixes, cultural symbols. But then I looked closer. The genetic markers match 98%. The bone structure is identical. Even some of your cultural patterns mirror the inheritor records. Hyun stared at the images. You're saying humans used to be a spacefaring civilization 10,000 years ago? That we… what, forgot? I am saying that either you forgot or someone made you forget. Nira's voice was grim. Extinction-level memory wipes have been used as weapons before. There are technologies that can erase records, destroy data, even alter memories on a massive scale. That's insane. Is it? Nira pulled up another image. This one showed Earth from orbit. But there were markers scattered across the planet's surface, glowing red dots. Your planet has anomalies buried in its crust. Technology fragments from what the archive calls the Old War. Your scientists have found them, yes? Strange metals that should not exist naturally? Structures that are older than your recorded civilization? Yun thought about the news reports he had seen over the years. Strange discoveries that didn't fit the historical timeline. Ancient artifacts that seemed too advanced. Scientists usually dismissed them as misidentified or explained them away. We thought they were just, I don't know, mistakes, contamination. They are not mistakes. Nira's eyes were sad. Your world has been hiding in plain sight. The Inheritors were masters at surviving impossible environments. They settled death worlds, planets that would kill any other species. They adapted, they thrived, and then they vanished. Hyun stood up and paced across the shelter. His mind was racing. Let's say you're right. Let's say humans are descended from these Inheritors. Why don't we remember? Why would we forget something that important? Survival, Nira said simply. If something was hunting the Inheritors, making the galaxy forget they existed would be the only way to save remnants of the species. Scatter survivors on remote worlds. Erase the records. Let them start over as if they were primitive. Wait for the danger to pass. And then hope that someday, when they rediscover space travel, the galaxy will have forgotten what they feared about the Inheritors. Hyun stopped pacing. What did they fear? Nira was quiet for a long moment. The Inheritors were survivors. They could live on worlds that were toxic to others. They could fight in environments that would kill entire armies of other species. They healed quickly, they adapted faster than any recorded species. And they were relentless. When they decided something needed to be done, they did it, no matter the cost. You make us sound like monsters. No, Nira said firmly. Not monsters, just dangerous. In the way that anything truly hard to kill is dangerous. The galaxy has rules, Hyun. Species that survive by cooperation, by staying in safe zones, by avoiding conflict. The Inheritors survived by being tougher than their environment. That made others nervous. Hyun sat back down. So what happened? Someone decided to wipe them out? Perhaps. Or perhaps the inheritors made enemies who were powerful enough to nearly succeed. The records are incomplete. The archive has gaps from that era, which is unusual. Something caused a massive data loss across multiple civilizations at the same time. Convenient. Suspicious, Nira corrected. Which is why I was shocked to see you. Finding a human, an inheritor descendant, alive and well on a Death World colony? It changes everything I thought I knew. The storm outside began to weaken. The wind's howl dropped to a steady moan. Hyun finished his tea and stared at the makeshift door covering. So what do we do now? He asked. Nira looked at her damaged suit, then at Hyun. Now? Now we survive this storm. We find my ship. We repair what we can. And then? She hesitated. Then I have to decide what to report to the collective. What do you mean? If I tell them that humans are inheritor descendants, it will cause chaos. Some species will welcome you. Others will fear you. And if the ones who destroyed the inheritors are still out there… She didn't finish the sentence. Hyun understood. They might come back to finish the job? Yes. They sat together in the shelter as the storm slowly died outside. Two people from different worlds, carrying the weight of a history neither of them fully understood. And somewhere in the galaxy, perhaps, something was waiting that remembered the inheritors better than anyone wanted. The night grew quiet, but neither of them slept much. Morning came slowly to Threshold 7. The purple sky faded to a bruised gray, and the wind finally died down to nothing more than occasional gusts. Hyun woke to find Nira still sitting in the corner where she had spent the night. Her large amber eyes were open, watching the light filter through the cracks in the shelter's makeshift door. Do you not sleep? Hyun asked, his voice rough from sleep. I slept briefly. Velnar require less rest than humans. Nira turned to look at him. The storm appears to have passed. Hyun stood and stretched, his joints popping. He moved to the door and carefully pulled aside the plastic covering. The landscape outside had been transformed. New cracks ran through the rocky ground, and several trees that had clung to the mountainside were now gone, ripped away by the wind. The air smelled clean but sharp, like metal and ozone. I need to find my ship, Nira said, standing beside him. It crashed approximately 3 kilometers from here, based on my last position before I sought shelter. 3 kilometers in that terrain? Hyun looked at the ravaged landscape. That's going to be rough going. Are you up for it? Nira straightened her shoulders. I am capable. I didn't say you weren't. I just meant your suit is damaged and you don't know this area. Hyun went to his supply closet and pulled out a spare breathing mask and a thick jacket. Here. The air is breathable but harsh. The mask will help, and you'll need the jacket. Temperature drops fast in the mountains. Nira took the items hesitantly. You are… helping me? You crashed in a storm. What am I supposed to do, leave you to freeze? Hyun started gathering supplies into a pack. Water, food, basic tools, a medical kit. Besides, I want to see this ship of yours. How long until someone comes looking for you? Unknown. The electromagnetic interference from the storm will have disrupted communications. It could be days before the collective sends a search party. Nira put on the jacket. It was too small, but she managed to get it closed. The breathing mask fit better. They set out into the transformed landscape. Hyun led the way, picking a path through the debris and new crevasses. Nira followed, and he noticed she was surprisingly quiet for someone so tall. Her movements were graceful despite the unfamiliar terrain. This world, Nira said after they had been walking for about 20 minutes. Threshold 7. It is classified as a Class 9 death world in the collective's records. What does that mean? It means almost nothing can live here naturally. The gravity is too high. The atmosphere has toxic elements. The weather is violently unstable. The native life is aggressively hostile. Nira climbed over a fallen boulder with effort. Most species need full environmental suits just to survive here for short periods. Settlements require massive life support systems. Hyun shrugged. Yeah, it's rough, but humans adapt. Give us a few generations and we make anywhere home. That is what the records said about the inheritors. Nira's voice was quiet. They did not conquer worlds. They simply refused to let the worlds kill them. They walked in silence for a while. The path grew steeper, and Hyun had to help Nira navigate some of the more difficult climbs. Her long limbs were good for reaching, but she didn't have the same instinct for finding handholds that Hyun had developed over years of mountain living. "What do you eat?" Nira asked suddenly. "What?" "For food. What do you eat on this world?" Hyun pulled out a ration bar from his pack and handed it to her. "Preserved meat from local game, processed plants, some imported supplies." "Why?" Nira examined the bar like it was a dangerous weapon. "This meat. What animal?" "Ridge prowler. Big predator. About 2 meters long, mean temperament. Good protein, though." "You hunt creatures that hunt you?" "Sure. They're good eating, and it keeps their population from getting too close to the shelter." Hyun took a bite of his own ration bar. "Try it. It won't hurt you." Nira took a tiny bite. Her eyes widened. She chewed carefully, swallowed, then looked at Hyun with something like horror. "This would poison most species I know. The toxin levels alone. Yeah, we process it first. Removes most of the bad stuff. You get used to the rest." Hyun kept walking. "Your people don't eat meat?" "We do, but only from specific sources. Carefully controlled environments. Safe species." Nira took another small bite, as if testing her own limits. "You consume food that actively tries to kill you. Everything on Threshold 7 tries to kill you. Might as well eat it." Nira made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You really are like the inheritors. The record said they turned death worlds into homes. I thought it was exaggeration." "Maybe it was just humans being humans," Hyun said. "We're stubborn like that." They reached a ridge and stopped. Below them, embedded in the side of a cliff face, was Nira's ship. It was smaller than Hyun had expected, sleek and silver like her suit had been. One wing was crumpled, and scorch marks ran along the hull. It had clearly taken a beating in the storm. "There," Nira said, relief evident in her voice. They made their way down carefully. The ship's entrance was still intact, and Nira managed to get the door open with a few commands spoken in her own language. Inside, the vessel was cramped but organized. Everything had a place. Emergency lights flickered weakly. "Can you repair it?" Hyun asked. Nira moved through the ship, checking systems with practiced efficiency. "The main drive is damaged but not destroyed. Communications are offline completely. Life support is functional. I can make repairs, but it will take time, days at minimum. Then you'll need supplies, food, water." Hyun looked around the small space. "You can stay at my shelter. Work on repairs during the day. Come back at night. Safer than staying out here alone." Nira turned to him, those amber eyes studying his face. "Why do you help me? You do not know me. My people's records say your ancestors were extinct. I could be a threat." "Could be," Hyun agreed. "But you're not. You're just someone who crashed in a storm and needs help. That's enough." For a long moment, Nira said nothing. Then she bowed her head slightly, a gesture that seemed formal. "Thank you, Hyun of Earth." "Don't mention it." They spent the rest of the day assessing the damage to the ship and gathering what supplies Nira would need. By the time they started back toward the shelter, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that were actually beautiful despite the planet's harsh nature. As they walked, Nira spoke about the Velnar Collective, about their culture of preservation and memory. Hyun talked about Earth, about the colony on Threshold 7, about humanity's drive to explore and expand despite being newcomers to the galactic stage. "Your people do not fear death," Nira observed as they climbed the final slope to the shelter. "We fear it," Hyun corrected. "We just don't let it stop us. The inheritors were the same according to the records. They lived alongside death so long it became almost familiar to them." Hyun thought about that. Maybe we didn't forget everything after all. Maybe some things are just in our nature. They reached the shelter as darkness fell. Hyun heated water for tea again, and Nira accepted her cup with less hesitation this time. They sat together, Two very different beings from two very different worlds, finding common ground in the simple act of sharing warmth and stories. Outside, the stars began to appear in the sky. Somewhere up there were the answers to questions neither of them fully understood yet. But for now, in the quiet of the shelter, those questions could wait. They had survived the storm together. That was enough for one day. 3 days passed. Hyun and Nira fell into a routine. They would wake early, eat breakfast together, then make the trek to the crashed ship. Nira worked on repairs while Hyun helped where he could, fetching tools or holding components in place. He was surprised at how quickly he learned to understand the alien technology. Nira was surprised too. "You should not be able to comprehend these systems," she said on the third morning, watching him successfully bypass a damaged circuit. "This technology is centuries beyond Earth's current level." Hyun shrugged. "Makes sense once you see how it fits together. Energy flows here, processing happens there, output goes to the drive system. Basic principles." "Basic," Nira repeated, sounding amused. "Yes, basic principles that take most species years of study to grasp. You learned it in 3 days. Human adaptability," Hyun said with a slight smile. "Maybe it's an inheritor thing." The repairs were going well. The communication system was proving the most difficult to fix, but the main drive was responding to Nira's work. Another few days and the ship might actually be able to fly again. It was early afternoon when they made the discovery. Nira was inside the ship testing newly repaired systems when Hyun noticed something odd about the cliff face where the ship had crashed. The impact had broken away part of the rock, revealing something underneath that didn't look natural. "Nira," he called. "Come look at this." She emerged from the ship and joined him at the cliff. Where the rock had fallen away, there was metal. Not natural stone, but worked metal, smooth and precise. It was dark gray, almost black, and it had strange symbols etched into its surface. "This was not here before," Nira said, running her hand over the metal. "The crash exposed it." "It's old," Hyun observed. "Look how it's integrated with the rock. This has been buried for a long time." They followed the exposed metal along the cliff face. It seemed to be part of a larger structure. After 20 minutes of careful searching, they found it. An entrance. Or what had been an entrance before time and geology had tried to seal it away. "We should investigate," Nira said, though her voice carried uncertainty. "Could be dangerous. Could be answers." Hyun looked at her. "You really want to know, don't you? About the inheritors, about what happened. My people preserve memories. Losing history is our greatest fear." Nira touched the symbols on the metal. "Yes, I want to know." They returned to the shelter for proper equipment. Lights, rope, water, emergency supplies. When they came back to the entrance, the sun was already starting to set. They should have waited for morning, but neither of them suggested it. The need to know was too strong. The entrance led down. The passage was wide enough for both of them to walk side by side, though Nira had to duck occasionally where the ceiling was lower. The walls were that same worked metal, covered in symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the light from their lamps. "These symbols," Nira said, her voice echoing slightly. "I recognize them from the archive. This is inheritor script." They descended deeper. The passage opened into a chamber, and when their light swept across it, both of them stopped. The room was huge, easily 50 meters across, and it was full of technology. Consoles lined the walls, dark and dormant. In the center of the room stood a large terminal, taller than Hyun, with a surface that looked like glass or crystal. "What is this place?" Hyun whispered. Nira approached the central terminal carefully. She pulled out her scanning device and ran it over the surface. "It is still powered, faintly, but there is energy here. After all this time?" She looked at Hyun. "This was built to last, built to wait. Can you activate it?" "Perhaps." Nira studied the terminal, comparing the symbols to data from her archive device. Her fingers moved over the surface, pressing certain symbols in sequence. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the terminal hummed to life. Light flooded the chamber, soft and blue. The crystal surface of the terminal began to glow. Holographic displays materialized in the air around them, showing star maps, data streams, images that moved too fast to follow clearly. And then a figure appeared. A hologram, life-sized and detailed. It was a woman, human in every way that mattered. She wore clothes that were neither primitive nor entirely familiar, a style that seemed functional and practical. Her face was stern, but not unkind. She spoke, and her words were in a language that Hyun recognized but could barely understand. Ancient Korean. Nira's translator struggled with it. But slowly, haltingly, meaning came through. To whoever finds this, the woman said. If you are human, know this. We chose to forget. Hyun felt his breath catch in his throat. Beside him, Nira stood perfectly still, recording everything. My name is Jiwon, the hologram continued. I was a keeper of memories for the inheritors, and I am recording this message in the final days of our civilization. The war has broken us. Our enemies did not just want to defeat us. They wanted to erase us. They weaponized our own history against us, turned our colonies into tombs, made our very existence a target. The hologram's image flickered, and scenes of destruction played behind her. Cities burning, ships tearing each other apart in space, worlds going dark. We were too stubborn to die easily. That was always our strength and our curse. We survived where others could not. We adapted where others would not. And for that, we were feared. When fear turns to hatred, hatred turns to war. And this war will end us if we do not act. Jiwon's expression became harder. So we are acting. We are scattering seeds across the cosmos, genetic archives, hidden colonies, instructions buried deep. We are erasing ourselves from the galaxy's memory. Our databases will be corrupted. Our monuments will be destroyed. Our worlds will be abandoned. And our descendants will start over, ignorant of what they were, safe in their innocence. She paused, and something like grief crossed her face. You who find this, you are our second chance. You are what the inheritors could have been if we had not been hunted. If you are reading this, then enough time has passed. The galaxy may have forgotten us. The ones who destroyed us may be gone. Or they may still wait, watching for any sign of our return. The hologram leaned forward, as if she could see through time to whoever was watching. Learn from our mistakes. Do not let pride make you enemies. Do not let fear make you weapons. But also do not forget what you are. You are survivors. You are inheritors. When the galaxy tries to kill you, you do not die. You adapt. You endure. You overcome. Behind her, the images shifted. They showed vaults like this one, scattered across different worlds, coordinates, star maps, locations where other caches might be found. These are the seeds we planted, Jiwon said. Knowledge, technology, history, everything we could preserve. Use them wisely, use them well. And if the ones who hunted us still exist, if they remember and come for you again, her expression became fierce. Show them what the inheritors were. Show them what you are. Show them that some things in this galaxy refuse to die. The message began to fade. We chose to forget so that you could live. Honor that choice. Honor us. And when you are ready, when you are strong enough, remember. Remember everything. The hologram vanished. The lights in the chamber dimmed, but did not go out completely. The terminal continued to display information, endless streams of data waiting to be accessed. Hyun and Nira stood in silence for a long time. The weight of what they had just witnessed pressed down on them like gravity. Your ancestors, Nira finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. They destroyed their own civilization to save what remained. They chose to forget everything they were. To protect their children, Hyun added, to give us a chance. And now you know. Now you both remember and do not remember. You are humans, new to the galaxy, and you are inheritors, older than most civilizations that exist today. Nira looked at him. What will you do with this knowledge? Hyun stared at the terminal, at the data flowing across its surface. History, technology, weapons, probably. Everything the inheritors had been. I don't know, he admitted, but Jiwon was right about one thing. If what destroyed them is still out there, still watching, he met Nira's eyes. We need to be ready. Outside, night had fallen completely. They made their way back through the passage and out into the cold mountain air. Above them, the stars looked different now. Not just distant lights, but reminders. Witnesses to a history that humanity had forgotten and was only now beginning to remember. The shelter seemed smaller when they returned to it, the walls too thin against the vastness of what they now knew. The next few days were different. Hyun and Nira continued working on the ship repairs, but the easy companionship they had developed was strained by the weight of what they knew. The vault remained sealed, its secrets waiting in the darkness beneath the mountain. Neither of them had suggested going back. Not yet. The knowledge was too fresh, too heavy. Nira worked with intense focus, her long fingers moving quickly over the ship's damaged systems. Hyun helped where he could, but he found his thoughts constantly drifting to Ji-won's message. We chose to forget. The idea haunted him. An entire civilization deliberately erasing itself, scattering its people across the stars with no memory of what they had been. The courage or desperation required for such a choice was almost incomprehensible. On the 5th day after their discovery, the ship's main systems came back online. The drives hummed with power, and the communications array finally responded to Nira's commands. She ran diagnostic after diagnostic, making sure everything was stable. It is ready, she announced. I can fly again. Hyun nodded from where he sat on a rock nearby. That's good. You'll be able to get back to your people. Nira powered down the systems and stepped out of the ship. She sat beside Hyun, looking out at the mountain landscape. I need to make a decision, she said quietly. About what to report to the collective. About me. About everything. Nira's amber eyes reflected the afternoon light. Protocol demands I report all discoveries. The vault, the message, the confirmation that humans are inheritor descendants. All of it. And if you do, then the galaxy changes. Some species will welcome humans as returning ancients, ones who might share lost technology. Others will see you as a threat, the descendants of a warrior race that nearly conquered the galaxy before. And if the ones who destroyed the inheritors are still out there, she did not finish the sentence. Hyun picked up a small stone and turned it over in his hands. They might come back to finish what they started. Yes. They sat in silence. A cold wind blew across the mountain, carrying the smell of ozone and stone. Somewhere in the distance, a ridge prowler called out, its cry echoing off the cliffs. What do you want to do? Nira asked. Hyun thought about it. About humanity, spread across Earth and dozens of colonies, unaware of their true history. About the dangers that might still lurk in the dark spaces of the galaxy. About Ji-won's message and the choice she had made. Tell them you found ruins of an extinct species, he said finally. Nothing more. Just old remains. Interesting, but not significant. Don't mention humans. Don't mention the connection. Nira turned to look at him. You would have me lie to my people. I would have you let humanity find its own way, Hyun corrected. We've been doing fine not knowing our history. Maybe we need more time before the galaxy knows what we are, what we were. He met her eyes. Ji-won and her people made a choice to give their descendants a chance. I think we should honor that, at least until we're ready. And when will humans be ready? I don't know, but not now, not yet. Hyun stood and faced Nira fully. But I have a request. The data in that vault. Everything the inheritors left behind. I want a copy. I want it safe. And someday, when the time is right, I want to make sure humanity gets it back. Nira stood as well. She was quiet for a long time thinking. Finally, she pulled out her archive device. I can encrypt the data, store it in my personal archives, separate from the collective's main database. It will be safe. And when you believe humanity is ready, I will return it. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. This is a great risk for both of us. Nira looked toward the hidden vault. If the truth comes out before you are prepared, it could destroy your species. And if my people discover I withheld this information, then we better make sure they don't find out. They returned to the vault one last time. Nira connected her archive device to the terminal and began the long process of downloading the inheritor data. It took hours. The sun set and rose again as information flowed from the ancient terminal to the modern device. Histories, technologies, genetic archives, star maps, everything Jiwan and her people had preserved. When it was finally done, Nira encrypted the data with security protocols that even the collective's best experts would struggle to break. She showed Hyun the completion confirmation. "It is safe now," she said. "The knowledge of what you were, preserved until you are ready to reclaim it." They sealed the vault entrance as best they could, covering the metal door with rocks and debris. To a casual observer, it would look like just another part of the mountain. Only someone who knew what to look for would find it again. Back at the ship, they prepared for Nira's departure. She had contacted the collective, reported her crash and successful repairs. A recovery team was on its way but would not arrive for several more days. She could reach them faster if she flew to meet them. "Before I go," Nira said, pulling a small device from her ship's supplies. It was sleek and silver, about the size of Hyun's palm. "This is a quantum communicator. It is paired to my personal device. If you ever need to contact me, speak into it, and I will receive the message, no matter where I am in the galaxy." Hyun took the device carefully. "Why?" "Because the galaxy is dangerous. Because your ancestor Jiwan was right that some threats may still exist. Because humans may need allies when the truth eventually comes out." Nira's expression was serious. "And because I believe you deserve a chance to find your way without the weight of old wars forcing your path. But you should not have to face what comes alone." Hyun nodded. He wanted to say something meaningful, something that captured the strange bond that had formed between them over these days. Instead, he simply offered his hand. Nira looked at the hand, then carefully clasped it with her own. Human and Velnar, two species from different worlds, sealing an agreement that could change the galaxy. "The Velnar remember everything," Nira said softly. "We will remember this. We will remember you. And humans, you will remember too. When you are ready, when you are strong enough." She released his hand and stepped back toward her ship. "Until then, survive. Adapt. Do what your ancestors did best." Nira climbed into her vessel. The engines powered up with a sound like distant thunder. The ship lifted smoothly from the ground, rising into the pale sky of Threshold 7. Hyun watched it climb higher and higher until it was just a silver point against the clouds. Then it was gone. He stood alone on the mountain, the communicator warm in his hand. The wind picked up, and he turned back toward his shelter. There was work to do. The settlement at the main colony needed to know about the vault eventually, but carefully, slowly. He would start with a council member he trusted, a man named Daeho who understood the importance of discretion. But that could wait a few more days. For now, Hyun returned to his shelter, to his simple life on a death world that humans had made into a home without even knowing they had done the same thing thousands of years ago on hundreds of other worlds. 3 months passed. Hyun made contact with Daeho and shared carefully selected information about archaeological findings in the mountains. Not the full truth, not yet, but enough to start conversations. Enough to make people think about Earth's deeper history. One evening, as Hyun was preparing dinner, the quantum communicator activated. Nira's voice came through, clear despite the vast distance between them. "Hyun, I wanted you to know. I submitted my report to the collective. I told them I found ruins of an ancient species on Threshold 7. Interesting but extinct. No connection to humans." "Thank you," Hyun said quietly. "Do not thank me. I did what I believed was right." "But Hyun, there is something else. I have been researching the old war, looking through fragmentary records. There are gaps, places where data was deliberately destroyed. And in those gaps, I found references to something called the Waiting Fleet." Hyun's grip on the communicator tightened. "What is that?" "I do not know. The references are vague. but they suggest that whatever destroyed the inheritors may have left watchers behind. Automated systems, perhaps, or long-lived species tasked with ensuring the inheritors never returned. You think they're still out there? I think it is possible, which means you need to be careful. Humanity must grow stronger before the galaxy remembers what you were. A pause. I will keep searching. If I find anything more, I will tell you. Nira, Hyun said, stay safe. You as well, inheritor. The communicator went silent. Hyun set it down and looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere up there, ancient enemies might still wait. Somewhere up there, the truth about humanity was hidden in vaults and archives and forgotten histories. But here, on Threshold 7, in a shelter on a death world that would kill most species, a human sat and planned for a future where his people would be ready for whatever came. Because that was what humans did. What inheritors had always done. They survived. They adapted. They prepared. And when the galaxy finally remembered them, humanity would be ready to show what 10,000 years of forgetting had taught them. They had learned to start over. They had learned to build from nothing. They had learned to turn death worlds into homes. And if old enemies came looking for the inheritors, they would find something new. Something that had all the strengths of the ancients, but none of the old weaknesses. They would find humanity. Hyun smiled and turned back to his work. There was much to do, but that was fine. Humans had always been good at impossible tasks. Outside, the stars shone down on Threshold 7, and the future waited patiently for the inheritors to remember who they were